So I just spent the better part of a weekend playing Marathon with its server slam, and while this isn't my full review, I plan on playing the full release for a lot of hours before I make that review. I still wanted to make this video to get my general thoughts on it because Marathon is one of the most intriguing games I've played this year. I don't think I've ever played a game that has a lore and a vibe that is so different than what the game actually is. What I mean by this is that Marathon is an extraction shooter. It has everything that you would have in a typical extraction shooter. You go in, you loot, you kill some AI enemies, you kill some real enemies, and then you extract out. If you die during any point in this time, you lose everything. But while the premise itself is extraction genre based, the game's lore and world is begging to be something else, and that something else is a single-player first-person shooter game. So today, let's talk about the Marathon Server Slam, let's talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and why I don't know if Marathon is ready for prime time. Before we begin, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button, and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. Back to the video. So I want to start this off by talking about that opening intro. That intro hooked me like crazy. The world of Marathon, this weird cyberpunk futuristic aesthetic, and the whole art design itself, coupled with the actual premise with the Marathon ship going missing in Tau Ceti and having these runners go out and try and collect the loot of the lost colonies of Tau Ceti, is such an amazing premise and such a cool premise that hooked me just as much as Arc Raiders. Arc Raiders is a game that I would consider to have an immaculate vibe and an immaculate world and pretty cool lore for what it is, which is a multiplayer extraction shooter. And surprisingly, I think Marathon matches Arc Raiders' world and design and things like that, while also adding to it and making it its own, which I think is a super cool thing and something that I didn't really expect from Marathon. Speaking of the aesthetic, I think the graphics and art style are really great. They invoke similar feelings in me like Arc Raiders did. There's this desolate world, and the environmental storytelling within each of the maps, as well as the sound design, really reflected that. In terms of the maps, I thought that they were solid, but not anything special. I think that the main issue that I have with these maps is that none of the points of interest are very recognizable, and on top of that, the maps do feel a little small. Even though I think that the variety and look and feel of the maps overall is pretty solid, I do think that the individual points of interest themselves kind of blend together. They don't really stand out from each other in any way, shape, or form, and so it's easy to kind of just understand that what you're going into is a building, and there's nothing that signifies that what you're going to find inside this building is any different than what you would find in another one, which is kind of a big complaint of mine. When you look at Arc Raiders, every single building you enter in every single map, you know what you're going to find, whether that's a medical lab, an engineering lab, or whatever it may be. You're going to know that as soon as you get in, you're going to find specific loot that is tailored to that point of interest. Now, on top of that, because of how grandiose some of the points of interest actually are and how different they look, you know exactly what you're getting into, and you can see those points of interest from far away and understand that those are places that you want to go visit. With Arc Raiders, I never felt like that. Every time I went to a building, I just saw a building. I didn't know what would be inside it. I didn't have any notion of what to expect. And on top of that, I didn't really feel compelled in the first place to go check it out because it wasn't really visually interesting from outside. The other big complaint, like I mentioned, is the size of the maps. I do find them to be pretty small. Now, they aren't like tiny or anything. This isn't a Call of Duty map that we're running around, but they are pretty small. And for the time limit that is given, which is 20 minutes, that is a lot of time to go from one end of the map to the other end of the map and hitting every single point of interest along the way before extracting. In Arc Raiders, you can do that, but it's going to require a lot of careful planning, and it will be easy to mess that up if you don't actually go through with your plan. Because at the end of the day, those maps are so big to where going from one end of the map to the other is a lot of times not feasible and not the best way to play the game. With Marathon, that is the best way to play the game. You can absolutely go from one end of the map to the other end of the map, hitting every single point of interest along the way, and that seems like the best way to play the game. Now look, I know I'm comparing this game a lot to Arc Raiders, but that is the extraction shooter that I think I've had the most experience with outside of Marathon. And on top of that, I think it is Marathon's direct competitor. Yes, I understand that Marathon is first person and Arc Raiders is third person, and they have different vibes, but at the end of the day, those are both extraction shooters competing in the multiplayer genre, and they are going to be pitted against each other for people's time. They're both $40. People only have a finite amount of time in their day, and they're going to pick one over the other to play, which is why I think comparing it to Arc Raiders makes the most sense. And look, back to the maps, I understand that there are going to be more maps upon release, but still right now at this very moment, if the maps that we did have in the Surfer Slam are anything to go by, the variety is kind of hit or miss. I love the art style, I love the direction, I love the graphics, but I want more individualized points of interest in each of the maps, and I want every single map to feel different. Also, it wouldn't kill them to add some larger maps. That would be greatly appreciated, because right now I think the maps are just a little bit too small. Now, everything I said about the maps is a lot of nitpicking, and I do actually find the maps to be pretty solid. I had fun going in, exploring the maps, and seeing what was going on in this world because of the vibe and the aesthetic was so great. I felt like that with Arc Raiders as well, and to have that same feeling is a good thing. But moving on to the gameplay, I think the gameplay was a little bit more hit or miss for me. Now, my first couple of runs in this game were slow. My squad didn't really use voice chat that much, and the encounters themselves I felt were like a little hit or miss. The shooting itself felt really nice, and that's honestly to be expected from a Bungie game. These guys made Halo, they made Destiny. This is what they do, and that is what I expect from them. There's a nice variety of weapons, and it's cool that attachments in this game is what makes a common weapon into a more rare green weapon or a blue weapon. Looting wise, I felt like I didn't have a lot of inventory space, and the space that I did have could have been filled up with meaningless junk pretty quick. Each individual loot item definitely feels less important than each individual loot item in a game like Arc Raiders. And since Arc Raiders uses relatively common items as its loot, it's easy to take a look at something and instantly know if it's going to be useful or not. With Marathon, I felt as though it was not inherently clear what exactly I was picking up and how it was going to be useful for me. I saw the colors, I saw green, I saw blue, I saw gray, and I knew that that was the rarity of the loot that I was picking up. But the loot itself didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that Marathon is an incredibly futuristic game set in a completely different solar system than ours, and so the actual loot items that you pick up are going to look and feel different than Arc Raiders, which is kind of set on Earth, has Earth items in it, and is easy to understand like what you're picking up and how it's going to be useful. With Marathon, that's not the case, and maybe that has to do a little bit with the art style, but I felt as though I had to read the menu with every single loot item to see what it actually was and was it worth picking up. That is a lot of time wasted hovering over an item in a menu and reading the little blurb that it gives me that I could have been spent not dying. To me, this is a really big issue. Every time I drop in, I don't want to have to look at the loot and read what it is before I take it. And on top of that, with the inventory space you do get, I know backpacks and things like that can expand your inventory space, but it's still pretty limited. There was not a lot of opportunity for me to kind of just pick up things willy-nilly without understanding what they really were, because there were always decisions that I had to make. Did I want something or did I not want something? Was it going to help me in the immediate here and now, or was it going to help me later down the line, or is it just something that I don't really need? With a game like Arc Raiders, I never really have this problem. When I go in and I loot, I kind of pick up everything that I see. And when I get full, I know that everything in my inventory is going to be useful down the line with crafting. In Marathon, there is no crafting. So the loot that you pick up is immediately useful or immediately not useful. And so having to read what is useful for what you have and what's not is kind of annoying. I know later down the line as I play this game more, I'm gonna intuitively know what is useful and what is not. But at the moment, I felt as though when I got into a lot of firefights and then I started looting, I spent a lot of time actually looking at the loot to see what it was when I could have been spent going to another place, or there were times where I died because I was too busy reading the loot. loot, which was super frustrating. Speaking of not dying, the AI enemies are definitely easier to kill than ARKs, but there are more of these AI enemies in Marathon and they are way more aggressive. You can absolutely get overwhelmed if you're not careful, and you will be killing AI enemies every session, as opposed to ARC Raiders where you can get away without attacking a single ARC. But I think my favorite part about the gameplay loop is the contracts and the lore behind these contracts. Each company has different types of contracts that make you do different things. You can kind of treat this game as a solo roguelike in some ways. You can go in, complete your contract, and get out. This unlocks lore drops, which are really cool because the world itself is really cool. The different classes in this game are also, I think, cool, but not very inspired. I think it takes away from the customizability of your runner a little bit, because since the game is hero based, every single runner looks a specific way and has certain ultimate and passive abilities, which kind of takes away from your individuality and how you can customize every single character. Overall, even though I do think that there are some really great things about the gameplay, I find the gameplay itself to be pretty mediocre at best right now. It's not anything super inspiring. There's not really a singular hook or anything like that pushes me to go on that extra run at night when I'm super tired, as opposed to just turning the game off and waking up and playing it the next day. That kind of addictability is just not there for me right now with Marathon, which is kind of a disappointment because that's not how I felt about ARC Raiders. With ARC Raiders, it was always that kind of one more run mentality, whereas with Marathon, when I die, I don't really feel that need to kind of go back out. I'm just like, yep, I'm good. I'm done for the day. That's all I really need to do. I'll pick this game back up tomorrow. Overall, man, I really do think that this game is solid. I'm pretty cautiously optimistic about the future of Marathon, and I will be playing this game quite a bit and giving a full review when the game releases in a couple of days. But there is one thing that I just really can't let go of. This lore, this world, this art style is some of the strongest stuff from Bungie in a long while. I'm not a Destiny player, nor have I ever been one, and the lore of Halo is still one of my favorite gaming lores to this day, and Marathon feels like it has the bones of that lore, but it's relegated to being an extraction shooter. Look, I know it's tough to review the game for what it is and not review the game for what it isn't, and I'm trying really hard to do that. As an extraction shooter, this game is solid. It's not phenomenal or anything, and I'm not sure if it's going to have the staying power of a game like ARC Raiders, but it is good. It's not uninspired, it's not boring, and it's not generic. But this game feels like it was begging for a single player campaign with maybe an extraction shooter element, or maybe ditching the extraction shooter part of it all and just going with the traditional arena style Halo-like multiplayer. I feel like this world and this lore needed something like that, and it's just not there, which is super disappointing. But yeah, that's gonna do it. Let me know down below your thoughts on Marathon. Are you having fun with it? Are you enjoying it? Or is this something that you're gonna be playing for months on end? Or did you bounce off it pretty quick? Is it something that is not really your cup of tea? Are you like me and are you wishing that there was a single player campaign for this game because the lore and the world that Bungie built is just that interesting? Or are you someone that doesn't really give a shit about single player and you just wanna play an extraction shooter for months on end and that's your cup of tea? I wanna hear everything y'all have to say in the comments down below. Again, if you like this type of content, make sure to hit that like button and please consider subscribing to see more content like this. We're gonna have a full Marathon review in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, guys, it's been CGG. I'm out.